Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.
It's Thursday, May 26th. This is The Gateway. I'm Wayne Pratt. A bill passed by the Missouri legislature would allow designated physical and mental health caregivers for nursing home residents and hospital patients.
There are a growing number of states that have similar legislation. It certainly is driven throughout the country by a reaction to the visitation policies that existed during the pandemic.
We'll have a conversation about that bill in just a few minutes. St. Louis County Executive Sam Page wants to use an influx of federal money to treat a record number of mental health patients at county clinics. St. Louis Public Radio's Sarah Fenton reports the county has tens of millions of dollars in untapped federal coronavirus relief funds.
St. Louis County treats mental health patients at its 3 clinics run by the health department. The clinics usually see 2,300 patients annually. This year, they're set to see 3,000. Page says the county should use some of its $74 million in coronavirus relief to hire more workers to help patients find mental health treatment.
For St. Louis County's Department of Public Health, the need for mental health services in the county far exceeds capacity.
Page says the department also needs more money to treat addiction in residents. Recorded overdoses, most involving the powerful opioid fentanyl, hit a record high in the last 2 years. Page says the county could also use some of the $45 million from a settlement with opioid manufacturers and distributors to treat people with addiction. I'm Sarah Fenton, St. Louis Public Radio.
Worker turnover in Missouri hospitals is at a record high. A Missouri Hospital Association report also shows the number of open staff nursing jobs has reached its highest level in roughly 2 decades. It's at 20% in the St. Louis region, which is the same as the statewide rate. Overall, the highest turnover rate is among housekeeping and food service workers. The Post-Dispatch reports union officials say less stress and higher pay could help reverse the trend. As COVID-19 cases rise in the region, children from 5 to 11 can now get their booster shots at 3 St. Louis County health clinics. The county's Department of Public Health is offering the shots at Berkeley, Pine Lawn, and Sunset Hills. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention expanded eligibility for that age group to get a Pfizer booster shot at least 5 months after their second dose of the vaccine. The CDC says getting vaccinated and boosted are the most effective ways to prevent COVID-19. Recycling pickup in St. Louis alleyways will resume May 31st after no service for nearly a year. St. Louis Public Radio's Rachel Littman reports.
The city stopped picking up trash and recycling separately in July 2021 because they did not have enough drivers. Collection of the blue bins was originally supposed to resume in December, but while a $3,000 hiring bonus helped get more drivers, the city was still short on people to repair the trucks. The streets department turned its focus to hiring mechanics, and they also reviewed data to determine the most efficient way to pick up the trash. All routes will receive at least once a week pickup. Some that produce more waste will get a second pickup. The streets department will adjust as needed. Residents are reminded that recyclable items must be clean and dry and should not be wrapped in anything. Plastic bags are not recyclable. I'm Rachel Littman, St. Louis Public Radio.
The Blues are still alive in the NHL playoffs after a big overtime win last night in Colorado.
Here's Bozak. Winds and shoots, he scores! Tyler Bozak in overtime has forced Game 6 of the series.
Tyler Bozak's second career postseason overtime goal gave the Blues a 5-4 victory last night in Denver.
Just got a little bounce up top and saw a lane to the net, and in overtime there's definitely no such thing as a bad shot, so just tried to get it through on the traffic, and it went in, so it was awesome.
St. Louis rallied from a 3-0 deficit to get the win. The Blues still trailed that best-of-7 playoff series 3-2. Game 6 tomorrow night at Enterprise Center. Our thanks to the National Hockey League, TNT, and the Blues for all that audio. The Missouri legislature has voted to allow nursing home residents and hospital patients to have designated caregivers to provide physical and mental support. Advocates are applauding the measure, saying visitor restrictions during the pandemic kept many people isolated. St. Louis Public Radio's Chad Davis asked the Missouri Hospital Association's Dave Dillon how hospitals will respond.
I think there's the message that has been certainly received by hospitals that our reaction to the initial limits on visitation were an overreach. That message has been heard loud and clear. The real question in the long run will be, depending upon what other type of health emergency we will face, whether this could create barriers that were problematic to the way we will be required to run our operations. And it's unknowable at this point whether that will create problems or not.
Since the bill does have, some provisions for hospitals, of course, to still keep people safe and to still have certain regulations or so, do you think those will be sufficient enough to keep patients safe, to keep visitors safe, even if you are able to let visitors in and visit the patients who are there?
Once again, I would go back to the unknowable. To some degree, that's the judgment call about risk, which is something that people in healthcare deal with every day, where that balance between the value provided by having that support, whether that's as a compassionate care visitor or as an essential caregiver, the value of that support versus the risk to not only that patient, but to all of the patients in the facility as well as the staff. I don't think there's an easy answer to that, but I do think that it is, in general, helpful. So balancing it between that value and then the risk of a infectious disease will always be the thing that the clinicians look at.
What do you want patients, hospital patients, of course, and visitors to know specifically about this bill? What this bill does and just how to keep themselves safe when they're at the hospital visiting patients or their loved ones.
If you are not moving through the emergency department and you're putting together a plan to be with a patient, we'll ask the hospital what their policy is, because it's most likely to be very flexible and because we really do understand that value. So it comes to the question of what the patient and what the facility they're addressing. So just for the purposes of illustrating, if you have someone that is undergoing a bone marrow transplant, they're going to be in an environment that has to be exceptionally clean because they're a big portion of their immune system is going to come down. And the best thing you can do for that patient is to follow whatever the clinical guidance is for care and assistance for someone going through that kind of treatment.
Is this something that you think that you'll see other states pass in the midst or at this stage in the pandemic?
This is likely more of a local, which is to say state challenge. And what we're seeing is it being addressed at the state level primarily. There are a growing number of states that have similar legislation. It certainly is driven throughout the country by a reaction to the visitation policies that existed during the pandemic. Much of this is very raw for our communities. So I think we're going to see this more.
That was Missouri Hospital Association Vice President Dave Dillon speaking with St. Louis Public Radio's Chad Davis. Shula Newman is the executive editor of St. Louis Public Radio, a listener-supported service of the University of Missouri-St. Louis. Music by Ryan McNeely of Adult Fur. I'm Wayne Pratt. This has been The Gateway.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.